Give my old laptop a chance to catch up. I love technology. I'm live. Alrighty. So today's topic, vulnerability. Been a few days since I did anything, so I thought I'm prepared, have a crack. Vulnerability is an incredibly important word. This sort of topic edges on the idea of the power of language in humans and defining the word. So most people would see the word vulnerability as a huge negative. And if you look up Webster's dictionary and the others, it doesn't necessarily give us a very glowing view of the word. So whenever we hear it, we think of a very negative connotation, or there's a negative physical reaction within the word. I remember a year ago doing a live with a good friend of mine and being attacked viciously by an older guy who said it was wrong of us to promote the idea of vulnerability amongst men, that it was wrong. And I can't dispute where he was sitting at. He came from a different era. He also came from an era where domestic violence was twice more prevalent, where domestic abuse against children was more prevalent, and a whole bunch of a host of things that just weren't talked about. So what I'm trying to do here is promote this idea that with this word vulnerability comes an immense amount of power. Basically, what I'm trying to explain here is that when you're vulnerable, that means you're open to challenge. Okay, so when we put ourselves out there and when we lose the fear of embarrassment, when we lose the fear of failure, when we lose the fear of other people's opinions, all of a sudden we enter into a completely new realm of personal development or growth. So we can spend our entire lives watching documentaries and YouTubes from other self-help gurus and these people. But one thing they're not encouraging us to do is actually be them, which is to get up in front of a camera, get up and tell a story, get up and seek challenge and seek the most uncomfortable things we can in our lives, because that is what vulnerability is. It's putting yourself out there without the fear of what may come back at you. So someone could watch this and say, that's the shittiest live I've ever seen. This guy doesn't have a clue what he's talking about. I'm going to get on tomorrow and I'm probably going to do a longer live and I'm going to do a bigger topic. I'm going to talk about something more uncomfortable, because for me to test that moment of vulnerability, for me, allow someone to openly attack me and have full at me is what I'm seeking. And why am I seeking it? Because when I learn to live without fear of embarrassment, when I learn to live without that fear of failure, I'm unstoppable. When I don't care what anyone thinks about me, and when I'm able to put myself out there with my opinions and with my perspective, I know that there is nothing that I cannot achieve. Now, I spend a lot of time working with men, and one of the reasons why I'm using this topic today, I'm talking about it, is I am really totally blown away by the idea that we can completely go stagnant in our lives because we're embarrassed. And yet I see this as a very common theme in the Western world, not so much in my time in Africa, but more so here, is this idea that I'm not going to leave my protective little shell because I don't want to be embarrassed. This isn't the caveman days where I wouldn't leave my cave because I didn't want to die. This is, I don't want to leave my cave because I'm scared someone might mock me. I'm scared someone might say something bad about me. I'm scared that someone may have a different opinion to me. So what we're in essence doing is tossing our lives away because of the fear of someone else and what they might think or see of our actions or our opinions or our thoughts. When, as a species, did we decide to just stop being creators? When did we stop becoming that species that overcame and kept creating regardless of what was put in front of us because we have fear of being embarrassed? So I think I've explained, how vulnerability is a strength, and then how basically vulnerability is linked very much to challenge. So now the idea is how do you encounter that and then deal with it? Well, there's a million different ways, like what I'm doing right now. I'm not comfortable doing this. I don't like talking into a laptop or into a phone. It's not my realm. My realm is face-to-face with people where I can actually see and engage with people. This makes me sweat. It makes me not comfortable. I will second guess what I said afterwards, but I continue to do it. So if you want to find your thing, your challenge, your moment of vulnerability, go door knock your street and introduce yourself to the people you've never met, even though you've lived beside them for 2 years, 5 years. Learn to sing in public, dance. And they seem like really silly little things, but the truth is, when you're not worried about what anyone thinks of you, and when those opinions lose their power, you are limitless. You can phone your family tomorrow and say, I'm going to climb Everest in a year. And when people tell you you're crazy, and when people tell you you can't, you don't listen anymore. Let that sink in. That's the power of vulnerability. When you're prepared to put your wildest dreams and your wildest thoughts and your wildest feelings out into the public domain, and when you practice that in very simple ways, you don't have to make them big, grandiose gestures to begin with. You sap the power of other people to rob you of your dreams with their opinions. Now, there are people out there who still do it, but they've become the 1%ers. And while the rest of us are still sitting down here being worried about and being fearful of embarrassment, fearful of failure, so we procrastinate, we're forfeiting our opportunities of brilliance. We're forfeiting our opportunities of living a completely fulfilled life. And here's the dark part of this. We're forfeiting our children's right to do the same, because our children do as we do, not as we tell them. So if we live a life fearful of embarrassment, if we live a life fearful and full of doubt, we're teaching our children to do exactly the same things. Not the nicest note to end on, is it? But the reality is, sometimes to inspire, we need to shake people up.